Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So before we get started with the hands-on part of the video, I would recommend you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You will find tons of amazing hands-on videos on DevOps as well as on cloud DevOps. And as you know, we try to focus on covering real-time scenarios so that you can learn in real time how DevOps is being utilized within companies. Talking about today's video. So as I discussed previously that we are going to cover a blue-green deployment strategy in real-time hands-on. That means I'm going to show you how we can deploy an application using blue-green deployment strategy. That means there will be two environment, blue environment and green environment. Let's assume a scenario where our application is currently deployed to blue environment and we want to upgrade our application with some features. So when we have written the source code with the new features and for the application, we can deploy it to next environment, which is green, and switch the traffic from blue environment to green environment. The best part about blue-green deployment strategy is that there is zero downtime. That means this is one of the best thing, because when we talk about deploying applications and managing them, one of the most important concern is that the downtime. So if we have zero downtime, that is the best part, and that's what I'm going to show you today, completely hands-on from scratch. When I say from scratch, that means I'm going to show you how we can set up the EKS cluster where we are going to deploy the application, how we are going to set up all the tools required and all the different servers needed like SonarQube server, Nexus server and all. So everything will be from scratch. You just need to focus on watching the video till end, because if you do so, then you won't be facing any issues while implementing the same on your own machine. Okay, so yeah, with that being said, let's get started. And also team, if you are new on the channel, make sure to subscribe. And one small announcement, very soon the batch 7 will be announced, and batch 7 is going to be one of the biggest batch where you are going to have everything. Okay, everything means like whatever is needed for you to qualify for an interview, it's going to be there along with Python. Yes, lots of you have requested to complete the Python series, but because of certain reasons I was not able to do, but I'll be adding it in the batch 7. Okay, so yeah, with that being said, let's get started. So team, before we get started, I want to show you how this application works. So if you see this option, we have build with parameter option, right? If I click on that, you'll see it opens a parameter section where we can decide where we want to deploy. We want to deploy to blue environment, we want to deploy to green environment. Based on that, you can select, for example, like this. And if you are deploying to different environment, definitely you want to switch the traffic. So make sure to check this. And once we select these things and click on run, then it's going to run and deploy to a different environment. Okay, just to show you the pipeline, if I show you, so these are the stages that we had in our pipeline. Okay, out of which most important section is switch traffic between blue and green environment. When I ran the pipeline for the first time, then it got skipped because there was no environment. We are deploying the application for the first time, so it will be automatically the service will be directing or pointing to blue environment. But when I ran the pipeline second time and defined it clearly that I want to deploy to green environment, at the time it switched the traffic from blue to green, and this will make sure that there is zero downtime. Okay, so this is what we have implemented, and the application, you can see it works fine, completely running properly. Okay, and yeah, the best part, you can see I have set up everything automatic. You can simply select whichever environment whichever environment you want to deploy, select that, build the application, run the pipeline, and it will be working fine. Okay, so team, now let us understand about the blue-green deployment strategy. How does it work? And the best part about using blue-green deployment strategy is that it supports zero downtime. That means if I'm upgrading my application from version 1 to version 2, there won't be any downtime for the application upgrade. Okay, so I'll explain you, and through hands-on also I'll be showing you how exactly does it work. Okay, so for understanding blue-green deployment, let us take a simple example of an application. So we are taking an example where we are having an application which is having database as MySQL, and the application source code front-end backend is written using Java, okay, and HTML. Okay, that means when we deploy this application inside Kubernetes, the structure of the pods created will be like this. We'll be having a MySQL pod, which will be having its own service. Okay, and this service is of type cluster IP. For like this is the default service type for internal communication. Second pod that we are going to have, which will be the like actual application pod with the Java code. Okay, so let's call it as app pod. Okay, and this will be having a service type of load balancer type, because using load balancer service type, like external access will be allowed. That means if I want to access this application, so users can send request to the load balancer URL. Okay, and how application pod is connected to database pod. So as you know, if you want to communicate with any pod, you need to first send request to service of that pod. That means this application pod will be sending request to the service of the database pod. So this will be the general structure of the application. Okay, and this is how we deploy, right? We'll deploy MySQL database with a service of cluster IP for internal communication, application pod or the backend frontend pod, and the specific load balancer service from where users can access the application. Okay, this is the general scenario that we deploy. Okay, now talking about how blue-green deployment will be working. So let us understand that as well. Okay, this is I hope you understand the general scenario where we deploy the application to Kubernetes. Okay, now in case of blue-green deployment, let's say I have deployed first my SQL and its service. Okay, MySQL database pod and the service which is of cluster IP kind. Okay, then I deploy the application pod. Okay, app pod, and let's say this is the version 1. Okay, now this deployment that we have done, let us call it as blue environment. We are going to call this as blue environment. Okay, now as I said, if we want to access the application, we need to have a service of the application pod in using load balancer type. Okay, so now we create a load balancer service type. Okay, now for the application to be accessed through load balancer URL, the application pod should be connected to load balancer. That means the load balancer should be directing or pointing to the application pod. Okay, and for application pod to connect to database, it will be connecting to the service of the database, right? This is the first scenario. This is version 1. Later on, let's say what happened, that we the developers, they have added some new features and they have created new source code version 2. Okay, this is the new version. Okay, then what how we are going to upgrade to version 2 without any downtime? So what we are going to do, we are going to create another pod using deployment. This will be version 2 and this is going to be the application pod. Okay, but this is different. This is the version 2. This pod is created using the source code, new source code, that is of version 2. Okay, and this is deployed like we have deployed. Okay, so now what will be happening, let's call this as green environment. Okay, now what will be happening, we are just going to make our load balancer service to direct the traffic to green environment and remove the traffic from here, and this application will be connecting to database from here. Okay, so you can see what exactly happened. We deployed the application pod separately and we just redirected the traffic. We switched the traffic from blue environment to green environment, that is from version 1 to version 2, right? This is what blue-green deployment. And how I'm saying that zero downtime is there, because generally, see, generally if general way when we deploy the application, let's say in this scenario, if I want to upgrade the application, currently it's version 1. If I want to upgrade the application to version 2, then like creating new pod and deleting previous pod, there will be some time taken, right? Here we are not directing the traffic unless the new pod has been created. That means there is no specific time taken, like there is no downtime there, because as soon as we direct the traffic from here to here, application is accessible, the new version of application, right? And this is how the zero downtime occurs. Okay, okay, and another thing, very important thing about blue-green deployment is that the rollback is very easy, because let's say we switched the traffic from like version 1 to version 2, but we are seeing that some issue is there. So immediately what we can do, we can roll back, we can redirect this traffic back to version 1. Okay, now for that, obviously we need to make sure that this previous version pod is also running. Okay, so yeah, in this way blue-green deployment has two best features. What best features? First, zero downtime. Secondly, rollback is very easy. Okay. Now we are going to implement it, because you know what I want to do. I want to make it high level automation. I want to do using the pipeline, so that I can show you, because you know anytime we want to switch the traffic or upgrade the application, we can simply like press some buttons and it will be deployed, the new versions. Okay. Okay. Summarizing again everything. Basically, let's say this is my application. Okay. And this is version 1, and let's call it as blue environment. Okay. And we have the service load balancer service type, from where users are interacting with application, and currently it is connected. Like currently our service is pointing to version 1 of the application. Later on we have written the like developers have written the new source code with the new features and everything, and they have given us, and we have tested it, and we have deployed that application, the pod we have created, and this is version 2. Okay. So as soon as everything is tested, immediately we can cut off this traffic from here and direct it to here. Now whenever users put the application load balancer URL, service load balancer URL in browser, they are going to see the new application version, and this you can see how easy it is, right? So this is what we are going to implement right now, and let's see what happens. So team, now we can get started with the hands-on part. And first thing that we need to do is set up our infrastructure where we are going to deploy the application. Okay. So for that, we need to create a virtual machine where we can run the Terraform commands to create the EKS cluster, right? So in order to create virtual machine, first of all, you should know what ports to open. So let me show you my security group, and maybe you can take a screenshot. These are the ports that are currently open on my security group. Okay. Now going ahead, and I'm creating a virtual machine. I'm going to name this virtual machine as server. Click on Ubuntu, and I'm going to set up version 24.04, and instance size will be T2 medium. Okay. Key pair is going to be this one, and then we are having security group selection, and then we can provide the storage. So I'm going to go with 20, and let's wait for this. Okay. First thing we can do is connect to this virtual machine. So open MobaX term, click on session, click on SSH, provide the IP address and provide username. In our case, it's going to be Ubuntu, and now we can select the private key for authentication and select that. Okay. This is done. Let me rename this. This is going to be named as server only. Okay. Now, first thing that we have to do is run the command sudo apt update, which is going to update all the existing packages, and so that they can become available for usage. Okay. So yeah, let's wait for this. And after that, first thing that we need to do is connect to our AWS account, because we are going to create the cluster on AWS. So we need to make sure that from this virtual machine we are able to communicate to AWS account, right? For that, we are going to use AWS CLI. Okay. So let us install AWS CLI. I'll copy this command, and it's going to install AWS CLI on our currently existing virtual machine. Okay. Once this is installed, then we are going to provide the credentials for our AWS account, and then we'll be able to communicate from this virtual machine to AWS account, and therefore we'll be able to create the cluster from here by running the commands here to our AWS account. Okay. So AWS CLI is installed. I can check that as well. AWS. Okay, leave it. It is already installed. Okay. Now we need to run this command AWS configure. Okay. And I can provide here. So using this command, we can provide the credentials. Click enter, and you can see it is asking for access key. Okay. So now you have to go back to your AWS account, and there are two options we can do. Either we can create a separate user, provide certain permissions to that user, and then using that user we can create the EKS cluster, or for demo purpose you can just go with your root credentials. Click on this username, click on security credentials, and scroll down till you find this option access keys. Click on create access key, check this box and click on create access key. Now this access key is available. You can download it on a local also by clicking on download.csv file, and this access key credentials will be available in this CSV file. Now copy the access key and paste it here. Okay. After that, we have secret access key. So that also we can get from here and paste here. Okay, after that you need to provide the region. So we need to provide the region that is nearest to you. In my case it's going to be Mumbai because it's the nearest, because I'm in India. Okay, so I can provide the code for Mumbai AP-South-1. From where I'm getting this, so if I show you here, you can see global, expand it, and here you can see Asia Pacific Mumbai AP-South-1. That's what I put. Okay, last option we have default output format, so we can just keep it empty. We don't have to do anything, just simply press enter. Okay, now we are connected to our AWS account. Okay, next step we need to install Terraform on this virtual machine because we are going to run the Terraform commands. So for that I can run the Terraform, and let's see, we can see that Terraform is not present, but we got the command to install it. So copy this command and make sure to put -- classic. If not, you are going to get error. Then click enter. It's getting installed. So meanwhile we can go back to our repository, and this repository we have to clone on the virtual machine because this repository has the code for creation of EKS cluster. Okay, so I'm going to clone this repository and run the command here as git clone repository URL, and it's private, so I'm going to provide the credentials to 46 and the token I have already kept it on my machine. I can copy this token and paste it here, and now we have cloned the repository. Now let's go inside this repository, and here we have cluster folders, so we will go inside that as well, and we have these files. Here first command that I'm going to run is going to be terraform init, which is going to initialize whatever is required for Terraform to execute these files and create the cluster. So let's wait for this. Okay, this is done. Next command that we can run is to check and find out what resources are going to be created while creating the cluster. Okay, so I can again run terraform plan, and this will show us how many resources it's going to create and which resources are going to be created. From here you can see it's going to create in total 17 resources. Okay, the code that I am having, it's first of all it's completely like variable format, you don't have to change anything. Secondly, everything is created from scratch. The specific, if I show you, if I scroll up, see VPC, then subnet, every security group, everything is going to be created from scratch. Okay, now one more thing I'll show you. So if I go back to cluster folder, here as I say, this is completely like variable format. So now if I go into variables, whatever private key you are having on your local machine, make sure you are putting the name here, first thing. Secondly, region. If you are not in India and if you are in different region, you want to create resource in different region, make sure to change this, and the availability zones. These in total 3 things we have to change, and this will work fine. Okay, now I can run the command terraform, then apply --auto-approve. Now this is going to create the resources, basically the EKS cluster, and this will take around like 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, I'll click enter and let's see. Okay, you can see it has started to create all the resources that we have defined. Okay, and this may take few seconds of some minutes, not few seconds, actually it's going to take 5 to 10 minutes minimum. Okay, so meanwhile this is getting done, we can get started with creation of other servers that we are going to use. Okay, so now I'm going to set up 3 servers, one for Jenkins, one for SonarQube, one for Nexus. So click on launch instance. I'm going to create 3 instances and scroll down. Ubuntu machine we are going to create, and the size of machine will be T2 medium. T2 medium is more than enough. Select the key and then select the security group. Okay, storage I'm going to give 25 to each one of them, and launch instance. Okay, and now let us provide their names. First is going to be Jenkins, second is going to be SonarQube, this should be small, and third is going to be Nexus. Okay, And now one by one we are going to connect to them and we are going to set up our required tools and other things. Okay, so let me create a duplicate of this. I'm going to rename this to Jenkins. Color will be obviously red for Jenkins. Okay, and IP address we can change. Okay, one more duplicate session I'm going to create, which is going to be for SonarQube. So I'm going to rename the SonarQube. Let's keep the color as cyan, and we have to change the IP address. For that we can go back to AWS account, and here we can open instance ID of SonarQube, copy the public IP address and paste it here. Okay, one more we have to create, which is going to be for Nexus. So I'm going to rename this to Nexus. Color we can change to green, and IP address we can get from here. Okay, I'll copy this and paste it here. Okay, now let's open these machines and SonarQube. Okay, first we have Jenkins, so I'm going to run the command sudo apt update. Let's wait for some time. Also, we need to understand that the prerequisite for Jenkins to set up is that it should be having a Java version available. That means on this virtual machine we need to install Java first. I'll run Java command, and then I'll copy this command to install JDK 17 headless. Headless means there is no UI for this Java. Okay, and meanwhile this is getting installed, we can go here and we can get the commands for installation of Jenkins or Ubuntu machine. Search, simply you can search on browser and click on the first link, and here you can select the flavor. So since we are working with Ubuntu machine, so we can select on Ubuntu, and here you can see we are going to install the LTS version, long-term support release version, because it's kind of stable. Also remember that do not use OpenJDK 11, you might be facing some issues, so make sure that you are using OpenJDK 17 or above. Okay, I'll copy this command and go back to Jenkins machine, and here I can paste the commands that we have copied, and this is going to install Jenkins on our virtual machine. Meanwhile this is getting done, we can go to Nexus. First command that we have to run, sudo apt update. Okay, now after we have run, so I'm going to set up Nexus and SonarQube using Docker container. That means we need to have Docker installed on these virtual machines. Okay, so let's wait for this. Okay, sorry about that. So we are going to install Docker. I'll run Docker, and as we can see Docker is not present, but we get the command to install Docker -y. Same thing we can do on SonarQube as well, sudo apt update getting. So my monitor is this side, that's why I have to look this side. Okay, okay. Now we are going to install Docker on SonarQube machine as well. So I'll run this command again to install Docker. One thing we need to understand that by default only root user has permission to run Docker commands, and if you want other users to have permission, we need to provide permission. How we can do that? We can run the command sudo user mod -a capital G, and then basically what happens, let's say I want to give permission to Ubuntu user to run Docker commands. So what I can do, I can add Ubuntu user to Docker group, and then the permissions on Docker group will be available to Ubuntu as well. So I'm going to add Ubuntu user to Docker group, and here I can write Ubuntu, and this will be added. Now for these changes to take effect, either you can restart your system, basically log out and log in, or you can simply run the command new group Docker. Okay, that is done, and now I can run the command to install Docker container for Nexus. Docker run -d-p, port will be 8081, host port is 8081, and container port is also 8081, and then the Docker image that we are going to use, which is going to be SonarType, Nexus 3, and it's going to download a Docker image of Nexus 3 latest version, and it's going to install it. Same thing we can try over SonarQube. Here again I need to first give the permission sudo user mod -a capital G. We want to add one to user to Docker group. Okay, and I can also here write user, and it's going to take the current user, which is Ubuntu, right? And for these changes to apply, I will run this command new group Docker, and now I'm going to run the Docker command to create the container. Docker run -d. -d is means running in detached mode, so that all the logs are coming in background, not in foreground. Okay, defining the ports, which is going to be 9000 host port, 9000 container port, and the Docker image, which is going to be SonarQube LTS-community. Okay, and as we can see, like for Nexus, it is installed. I can run this command docker ps, and we can see that container is running. Remember this thing that Nexus is a kind of server that takes little more time as compared to other tools to come up online. Okay, still we can try to access it. I can get the public IP address of Nexus, and I can put it on browser, and I can provide the host port here, which is going to be 8081. Click enter, and as we can see, Nexus is up and running. Okay, same thing we can try with SonarQube. SonarQube container is also created. I can confirm by docker ps. Okay, and we can access it as well over browser by providing the public IP address and the port, which is going to be 9000. Okay, it is also up. By default, the username and password of SonarQube is admin. So I can copy that, I can paste it here, click on login, and we have to change the password here. New password, I can set up something else. Okay, and click on update. SonarQube server is set up. Okay, coming back to Nexus, so if I try to log in, here you can see the username is going to be admin, but the password is stored on this file, admin.password, and we have set up our container for Nexus inside a Docker container. So we have to go inside the container. Okay, how we can go? So we can run the command docker exec, means execute -it. -it means interactive terminal. We are opening a terminal to interact with Docker container, and then the container ID, which is going to be this one. And after that, we need to provide the kind of terminal with which we want to interact. So I'm going to interact with bash, and now you can see bash 4.4, and this means that we are inside the container. Okay, if I run ls command, these are the files and folders present on the Docker container of Nexus. So let us go inside the sonatype work, and sorry about that. And here we have one file, one folder. So let us go inside that as well. And here you can see the file admin password. So we will run the cat command to get the password, and you can see this is the initial password. So copy that till here. Do not copy bash part. Copy that and save it here, paste it here, click on sign in. And now we have logged in, but we have to update the password. So new password, you can set up whatever you want. Okay, and this is done. Click on next, and depending on the requirement, you can enable or disable anonymous access. I'll be disabling it, and click on next, and Nexus is also set up. Okay, coming back to accessing Jenkins. So Jenkins we have already installed, and we can also, when you install Jenkins, do not forget to run one specific command. Let me tell you. After you have successfully installed Jenkins, one second, let me select Ubuntu, scroll down, make sure to run this command, sudo systemctl enable Jenkins, so that even if the machine gets restarted, Jenkins will still automatically run. Okay, so this is done. Basically, like as soon as machine starts, Jenkins will also start. Okay, so this is done, and now we can access Jenkins as well, and copy this and paste it here. Port is 8080. Okay, and initially we need to have the admin's password, which we can get on this location. If you read whole thing, you will get to know like this is stored on this. Okay, I'll copy this and I can use cat command, but we might be getting error. Why we are getting error? Because this folder requires elevated permissions. So what we are going to do, we are going to use sudo before cat, and I'll run this, and we have the password now. So I'll copy this, paste it here, click on continue, and click on the first option. Now this is going to install the required plugins for Jenkins, and this will take some time based on your like network speed and all. Now what we have to do, we have to install certain tools directly on Jenkins. First I'm going to install Docker. And Docker installation, what I suggest to do when you are going to utilize Docker on Jenkins, install it from official page. Click on this, copy this command and paste it here, and the installation command. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete. This may take some time. Okay. Also, once this is done, we need to change permissions. Okay, what permission I'm going to change? I'm going to run this command sudo user mod -a capital G, then Docker, then Jenkins. I want to give permission to Jenkins user so that it can run the Docker commands. Now Docker is installed on Jenkins as well. Okay, but those changes have not been yet applied. Jenkins is also set up, so I can set up username and password for Jenkins as well, and full name and email address. Click on save and finish. Now one thing you need to understand is since we just we have set up a Docker also on Jenkins, and for those changes need to be applied /restart. Run this command one time, and then the permission for Jenkins to run Docker commands will be applied. Okay, let's wait for this to complete. Meanwhile, Docker we have installed on Jenkins. One more thing we need to install, which is going to be 𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗶. Okay, because 𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗶 plugin is not available on Jenkins by default, so we are going to install it. Make sure to select the correct flavor. In my case, it's going to be Ubuntu, so I'll copy this, paste it here, and it's going to install 𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗶. Other than 𝗵𝗶𝗹 also we need something. What we need? So we need to have 𝘂𝗶ctl, because we are going to run like commands to perform different things on Kubernetes. So we need to have 𝘂𝗶ctl installed on this machine. If I run this 𝘂𝗶ctl, we can see that it's not installed, but we get the command for installation. So I can run this. Make sure to add --classic. Okay, and side by side we can check the status of our Terraform commands. As you can see here, Terraform has successfully created the resources. Okay, basically the cluster. Okay, after this is done, still we also need to install EKS cluster here. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm going to run this. Sorry, we have to install 𝘂𝗶ctl here. Okay, so let us install it. --classic, and still we are not able to see cluster is created, but still we are not having the permissions to connect to cluster. Okay, I'll show you like what we have to do. Okay, for example, if I run here 𝘂𝗶ctl get nodes, so this command is failing. Why? Because we have not yet connected to the cluster. How we are going to connect to cluster? So for that you have to run specific command. Let me show you. This command you have to run AWS EKS, then region you have to provide, then update kubeconfig. This is going to create a new kubeconfig file, which is going to be used as authentication also. Okay, so I'll run this command here. Okay, now if I run this command, now you can see that we are able to connect to our cluster. Okay, now few other things that we need to do here is basically the RBAC. So we want that the permission to execute different commands or perform deployments or update deployment, those permissions should be available only to the specific service account, okay, specific user. So for that I'm going to create a service account named Jenkins. Okay, so I'm going to create the file dot yml. Save this, and we have to run the command 𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗹. But before that, if you notice clearly, we are creating this service account inside specific namespace. That means we need to create the namespace first. So for that I can run the command 𝗂𝗶𝗹 create ns, short for namespace, and then namespace name, which is web apps in our case. Okay, and now I can run the command 𝗂𝗶𝗹 apply -f our service account created. Next up, we are going to create a role, and this role is going to be utilized. This role will be having permissions defined, like what kind of permissions should be there, like on different resources. For example, you can see here we are giving permission on pod, secrets, config, map, daemon, sets, deployment, everything. What kind of permission? Get, list, watch, create, update, patch, and delete. Okay, so these permissions we are creating this role, and later on we are going to assign this role to our service account Jenkins. Okay, so let's create the role first. Vi role.yml, paste the contents, save this, and 𝗂𝗶𝗹 apply -f, sorry about that, -f it should be. Role created. What is the next step? Next step, we are going to bind this role to our service account. For that we have to create another kind resource, which is role binding. So let's create that as well. Role bind.yml, paste the contents, save this, and 𝗂𝗶𝗹 apply -f, then role bind. Okay, this is done. Next step, what we are going to do, we are going to create a token. Okay, we are going to create the token for this service account itself. So I'm going to copy this, click here, vi, then this is going to be sec.yml. And what we are going to do, we need to make sure the service account name is correct. In our case, it's going to be Jenkins. Okay, save this, and 𝗂𝗶𝗹 apply -f, then sec.yml. If I click enter, it's going to be created, but we are going to face issues. Why? Because here we have not defined the name of a namespace where we want to create the secret. So we are going to define it here -n web apps. Okay, now secret is also created. Last thing that we have to do is create the token from secret, which we are going to use which we are going to use for authentication. Okay, I'll run the command 𝗂𝗶𝗹 describe secret. Name of secret we have is this one, -n web apps, and you can see here a token generated, right? This token we are going to save it because we are going to use this for authentication. So I'll copy this, and immediately we will be going to Jenkins. Let's log in immediately, sign in, go to manage Jenkins, then go to credentials, global, add credentials, kind will be secret text, paste the token that we have copied and give it a name like 𝗂𝗏-token. Okay, copy that, paste it here, click on, yeah, token is saved. So from our side, this part is done. We have set up service account, we have set up RBAC also, we have set up cluster also. Okay, coming back here, now first of all we are going to install certain plugins that we are going to use. So I'm going to click on plugins, available plugins. Here first search for Sonar Scanner, then config file provider, and then we are going to search for Maven, Then two plugins we are going to install, Maven and pipeline Maven integration. Then also we need to have stage, pipeline stage view, and then we are going to have Docker. So I'm going to install Docker pipeline. Then we are going to have Kubernetes. So in Kubernetes I'm going to install first one and this. Okay, this seems fine to me, so click on install and these plugins will be installed, and this will take few minutes to completely come up in a running state. Okay, so once this is done, then we are going to continue. So team, now let us start writing our pipeline. So we can create a job. I'm going to call this as blue green. Okay, and click on OK. As part of best practices, I'm just going to keep 2 builds in the history. And now let's create our sample pipeline. Okay, now let us create multiple stages. Okay, first stage is going to be git checkout. And here we have to write the stage. I can take help from pipeline syntax. This is my repository, and I can provide details here. Branch name is going to be main, and credentials I can just add in Jenkins. Username is going to be 𝗗𝗶𝗹𝗶246. Password is going to be the personal access token that we just created, and name will be git cred. Click on add and select the credentials, generate the script, and cloning is step is created. Next step, I'm going to perform compile. Many of you might be thinking one question, ki if compile is already going to run when we run package install or anything else, why we are running compile in the here itself? Because one of the main ideas inside DevOps is that to find out issues at the early stages itself. And as you know, compile, what it can do, it can find out the what kind of syntax based errors are there in our in our source code. So if I'm running it at early only, then we'll be able to find out here itself. Okay, and here I'm going to write the stage as sh mvn compile. Now before we proceed ahead, I need to tell you that whatever third-party plugins that we are going to use within the pipeline, we need to define them here. That means if I'm going to use Maven here, I need to define it. If I'm going to use if I'm going to use SonarQube scanner tool, I need to define it. But if I want to use 𝗁𝗲, I don't need to define it. Why? Because the tools like 𝗁𝗲, which I have installed directly on the virtual machine, so in that case we don't have to define them. But when we install the tools using plugins, then we have to define them here. Okay, so I will save this and I'll go back to manage Jenkins, and let us go to tool section. Go at the end here. First we are going to configure Maven. You just need to provide a name. I'm going to give the name as Maven 3. Scroll up, and in SonarQube scanner we are going to provide a name as sonar-scanner. Okay, again scroll up, and rest everything seems fine. Because we are not going to add JDK because we have already installed JDK during the, which was the prerequisite for setting up Jenkins, right? Click on apply. Docker also I'm not configuring because we have already installed Docker on our Jenkins machine. Okay, now what we have to do, now we need to set up certain credentials. Before we start writing pipeline, we need to set up other things as well, right? For example, credentials. Okay, so next credential which I want to set up is going to be a token for SonarQube. So since we are going to add token, that means it's going to be secret text. So if I go back, go to SonarQube, administration, security, users, and then tokens. Provide a name here, generate the token, copy that token, and paste it inside Jenkins credentials. Name you can give like sonar-token. Copy that, and description as well. Okay, now we are going to add SonarQube server inside Jenkins. So for that you have to go to manage Jenkins, then system configuration. Inside that, system, click on that, and let's scroll down and here you'll be able to find this option SonarQube solution under SonarQube server. Click on that, provide a name like Sonar server URL. So server URL we can get from here, copy that, paste it here, make sure to remove the slash and select the token that we created. Okay, server is configured. Next thing we have to do is click on managed files. Click on that, click on add new config, global Maven settings. I'm going to change this name to Maven-settings. Click on next, scroll down here. Here we have to add credentials for our Nexus server. Okay, so here first of all I'll remove this comment. Okay, and now we have to provide the credentials here for specific repo. So in case of Java based applications, we are going to utilize two repos, Maven releases, Maven snapshots. So first I'll click on I'll Maven releases, Maven snapshot. So 1 second, I'll copy this name, go back to Jenkins, put it in ID, username, which is going to be admin, password, which is going to be Aditya, and same thing we have to do for the second repo, which is snapshots. Okay, Maven snapshots. Done, save this. Another thing that we have to do, if I click on browse, take the URL, copy this URL, go to your repository, go to 𝗵𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 file, go into edit mode, go at the end, and you'll be able to see this section. If not, you have to add it manually. Now for Maven releases, we need to provide the repository URL here. Same thing we have to do for Maven snapshots, and for Maven snapshot also I'm adding. One more thing I'll tell you, like how do we know what kind of artifacts are going to create it? Like is it going to be a release artifact or is it going to be a snapshot? So here you can see it's going to be a snapshot. We have defined it here. Okay, great. Now coming back here, so this is set up, and what else we need to set up? The rest everything seems fine. We can go back to pipeline and let us configure the rest of the stages. Okay. Here we want to execute test cases. Okay, yeah, so as I told ki Maven we have added, but we have to define it in our pipeline. How we can do that? Using tools block. Inside tools block we have to provide the tool type and tool name. Maven is a tool type of Maven only, and tool name we have configured inside tool section is Maven 3. For those who are getting confused from where this Maven 3 is coming, if I go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, then tools, scroll down to Maven, and here you can see the name that we given Maven 3. That's what I have written here. This is tool type and this is tool name. Okay, and now yeah, test cases. Okay, here we have to write sh double quotes mvn test. Now think about a scenario where test cases you want to execute but they are failing. So obviously if you want to just wait for the testing team to fix it, it might cost you a lot of time. So in such scenarios, what we do, we try to skip the test cases and proceed with the running of the application. So in that we can do -d skip test equal to true. This will skip the test cases. Okay, after that what we are going to do, we are going to perform 𝗁𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁 file system scan, that we can write fs scan, and here I can write sh double quotes 𝗁𝗲, what we want to scan, fs file system, and in what format we want the report. I want the report in the format of table. In what file I want, so -o, file name is going to be fs.html. What I want to scan, so I want to scan current directory, or if you want to scan something else, you can put that folder like directory name here. Okay, moving forward to next one. Next, what I want to perform SonarQube analysis. I'll perform like this, SonarQube analysis. Okay, Now, SonarQube, for SonarQube analysis, we'll be needing SonarQube scanner, right? Do not forget that SonarQube server and scanner are two different things. Server is this server where we are going to publish the report, while scanner is the tool that is going to perform the analysis, generate the report, and publish the report here on server. Okay. So if you want to use SonarQube server scanner, we have to define it. How we can define it? We can define it in an environment. How we can define? We can create an environment named scanner_home, which is going to point to home directory of the tool Sonar Scanner. Okay. Sonar Scanner, if you are confused from where this is coming, again, if I go up, you can see for SonarQube scanner installation, we have provided this name. Same thing I'm defining here. Okay. Coming back to SonarQube analysis. So once we have defined our SonarQube scanner tool, we have to write these steps. For steps writing, you can take help from pipeline syntax. Here we can go and we can search for with SonarQube environment, this one, and here select this, and this will generate a block. Copy that block, paste it here. Okay. Now inside this block we have to write. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to remove this, and here just the name of the server will be there, which is Sonar. How do I know? If I show you, same thing, manage Jenkins system. If you see closely, you'll see the name of server that we configured is Sonar, and that's what we are referring here. Now we have to write the steps. For that we can use sh for like including inside shell block, and we have to call this environment that we created, which is scanner_home/bin/sonar-scanner. This is going to call the Sonar Scanner tool to get started or get executed to perform the analysis. After that, we have to add some parameters, which is going to be the sonar.project key in key capital. Name you can put like anything. I'm going to put multi-tier hyphen the sonar dot project name, which is going to multi-tier. Anything you can put, I'm just putting same thing. Then -d sonar.java.binaries. This is going to be specific. We need to provide the location of where the binaries file are located. So basically this specific parameter we have to use only within the Java based applications. Okay. Now let's proceed with the next step. After SonarQube analysis is done, what we can do, we can perform the code quality check. How we can do that? So for that, first of all, make sure to copy this Jenkins URL, go to SonarQube, administration. In configuration, you will see this option, webhooks. Click on create. And here, make sure to provide the correct URL for our Jenkins. And here, name I'll just give at Jenkins. No need to provide any secret, simply click on create. This is done. Going back here, and first let me create a few more stages because we'll be needing them. Okay. So here, this is going to be quality gate check. Question is how we are going to write it. Okay. So we can take help from pipeline syntax. Click on that. First we have to select timeout. Where is it? I'm going to set the timeout to 1 hour, maximum 1 hour. Copy this, bring back and paste it here. And now we have to write the quality gate check command here inside the block. Again, we can take help from pipeline syntax itself. And here we have with code quality check. Wait for quality gate. Okay. Generate, and till here we are going to copy and paste it here. Next up team, what we have to do, we are going to build the application and publish the artifact. Okay, so here I'm going to write the stage name as build, and here we can write sh, basically including in cell block mvn package. Okay, and the test cases for this application are failing, so in that case we can put tskip test equal to true. Okay, next step would be to add the publish the artifact to Nexus. For that I can write publish Nexus. Okay, publish artifact. Okay, now for writing the stage for steps for here, we are going to take help from pipeline syntax, and here we'll find something with Maven, this one. Maven, we can select the one that we configured. JDK is like already default. Then we have to directly go here to select the my global settings that we have just configured inside the managed files. Okay, click on generate, and we are going to write a command inside this block. Okay, so this, and now we can write sh mvn deploy, and this is going to deploy the artifact to Nexus. And here I am going to also add the skip test equal to true. Okay, once this part is done, so team, in our pipeline now we need to go ahead with Docker stage. Basically we want to build Docker images, but before we get started with that, two things I'll tell you. That we want to have two Docker images, one for blue environment, one for green environment. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up a parameter which will where we can, before starting the pipeline, we can decide if this is for blue environment or green environment. Similarly, we can set a parameter which will decide if we are going to deploy to blue environment or green environment. Okay, so for that we are going to set up parameter, and these three parameters I'll be setting up. I can add them here. Now first parameter is the deploy environment, like if you want to deploy to blue or green, we can decide there. Second parameter, we have Docker tag. So tag means like version, basically blue version or the green version, that we can decide. Third parameter is switching traffic. As I told in the beginning that in case of this blue-green deployment, basically what we do to get zero downtime, we just switch the traffic from current environment to the new or upgraded environment. Okay, so we can decide at runtime if you want to switch traffic or not. Okay, other than that, we are going to set up a few more things. We are going to set up two variables. One is going to be image name, which is going to be your own Docker image, and second is going to be the tag. You can see params.docker tag. That means it's going to utilize the Docker tag parameter value. Okay, so let us add these two as well in here. Okay, now we can write the stages for Docker build. So here let me rename this to Docker build and tag image. Okay, and here we have to write the Docker steps. So I'm going to first create a script block inside which we are going to have the Docker commands, and now we are going to create a Docker block. So for that we can go to pipeline syntax, and here we'll find something as with Docker registry. Select that, and now we have to add the credentials. Registry URL we are not giving explicitly because we are going to use the Docker Hub. So let us create registry credentials. Username is going to be this, and password we need to provide the Docker Hub password. Okay, and ID you can give and description you can give. Select that and generate the block. Copy that now and paste it here. Okay, now we have to write the build command here, and let us write that as well. sh double quotes docker build -t, then dollar image name enclose, then colon, then again dollar tag. Okay, and the path of Docker file. You can see this also we are keeping as variable format only. Just let me match image name and tag. This seems fine. Okay. Once this is done, what we are going to do next step would be to perform the Docker image scanning. So I can create new step, a new stage, and this will be Docker image scan. Here we are going to write Docker, 𝗁 image, and here instead of dot we are going to write the image name, so that at runtime it can decide which one it has to scan, the blue image or the green image. Okay, and after that we are going to push our Docker image to Docker Hub repository. So for that I can create this stage and Docker push image, and here I can remove this. I can write Docker push and this one. Okay, so this part is done. Now comes the interesting part, or the most important part. Now what we want, that first of all we need to, because see our application is having multiple components, as you can see here, that our application is having MySQL database with along with SVC service, and we are having the application pod. Okay, so the thing is ki the application pod we are going to change blue and green, but MySQL database is not going to change because data we are not changing. Okay, that means ki we can deploy the MySQL database first, and the if I show you again, this is not changing, right? And this is not changing because service is also not changing, load balancer URL, because the only thing that we are going to upgrade in order to upgrade the application is the application pod, right? Data we are not moving anywhere, the access URL we are not changing, right? That means the only thing that we are changing is the application pod, blue pod and the green pod. Okay, now that means we can deploy these things first, and later on we can deploy these. Okay, now what we have to do, let me show you that as well. So here if you see closely, there will be 4 YAML files. First is going to be MySQL database deployment file and the service file. Okay, this is the cluster IP service, and here you can see the database. Okay, and it's using a Docker image of version 8. That is one deployment file. Second deployment file is going to be the bank app, the actual application service file, load balancer service file, so that we can get the URL to access the application. Now the most important thing using which everything we are going to communicate is this section, version. Okay, initially we are setting the version to blue. That means initially the production environment will be blue. Later on we are going to switch it to green. Okay, this is the version, and there you can see here 2 YAML files are there, app deployment blue and app deployment green. If I open this, they have the same structure, same connection URL to database. The difference that comes is this one, the version and the Docker image. These two things are, because service, when we want to switch the traffic from blue to green, it's going to match this one. It's going to communicate using version. It's going to check which pod is having version green, which pod is having blue, and based on that it's going to switch the traffic. Okay, again if I show you the stages. Okay, so first what we are doing, we are going to deploy the MySQL deployment and the service database. Okay, so let us add that stage as well. Okay, what things we have to change here? First we have to change the server URL where you can get, here I can search EKS, the one that we have just created, and here we will be able to see our server URL, which is API server endpoint. So copy that and let's paste it here. Okay, next up, credential is already added with the same name, create token. If I try to show you, manage Jenkins credentials, you can see create token, so that is not going to change. And cluster name is also DevOps cluster only, so here we don't have to change. Okay, now what it's going to do, it's going to deploy the kubectl, it's going to deploy the MySQL database along with its service. Okay, Second thing, after this is deployed, what we want to deploy the application service, okay, the load balancer service URL. And there we are setting up a condition that if service is not already available, it's, you can see here, if not symbol, then this. So if this is not giving an output, then we are going to run the command to deploy this service. Then only we are deploying. Okay. Well, service deployed, and then what we are doing? Then we are deploying the actual deployment file. There also we are setting up conditions. Condition in the way that if the parameter, if at runtime, if I decide that I want to deploy to blue environment, if I selected that, then deployment file that will be used is app deployment blue, else second app deployment green will be selected, and then it's going to deploy. Okay. Lastly, and the most important section, is switching traffic between blue and green environment. That is also happening based on the parameter that we select. Okay. This command that you see, 𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗃 service. Okay. This is the command that is going to switch the traffic. Basically, this command is going to decide our load balancer service is going to point to blue pod or the green pod. Okay. And finally, we are having the verify deployment. Okay. So let us add these one by one. Second stage is going to be deploying the bank app service. Let me add this stage as well. Here again, we have to change the server endpoint. So this is for deploying the service. Next up, we have deploying the actual application YAML file, application pod, blue pod or green pod, that will be decided at runtime. Here also, what we have to change, we have to change the server endpoint URL. Okay, and then we have the switching traffic command. So team, let us understand this stage, because this is the most important part. So first of all, I am setting up a condition, like when block I'm setting up. That means that this stage will run only if switch traffic parameter or switch traffic is enabled. That is, means if we are saying that traffic should be switched, then only this stage should be run. And if in that case, it's going to switch the traffic to the parameter that we provide inside deploy environment. That means if we provide the parameter as blue, it's going to switch the traffic to blue. If we provide parameter as green, it's going to switch the traffic to green. Okay. So yeah, this is that. And here also we need to change the cluster API server URL. Let me change that. Okay. And last stage that we are having is basically just to verify the deployment. So that also we can add. And here we are simply running the command to check like pods and the SVC, so that we can get the URL. And here also one last time we have to change the API server URL. Okay. So this is done, and rest everything seems fine for me. So I'll click on apply. And now let us run this to see what happens. If some error comes, we are going to fix it. Okay. So I have triggered the pipeline and it's starting. And yeah, this is going to run for quite some time because tons of stages we are having. In total, okay, first time when I run, this option was not available, right? But after I have run, this option is available, built with parameters. Okay. Still, let's see what happens. Maybe what we can do, we can abort this pipeline first, and now we can run with build parameters pipeline. So click on this, and now you can see the option like which one we want to deploy to. First, by default, we are going to go with blue, blue, blue. And now first time it's going to direct to blue only, so we are not going to check this option to switch traffic. So first I'll run this. Once this is done, and let's see what happens. After this we are going to uh, switch the traffic to green, that is for version upgrade. Okay, so let's wait for this, and this is going to take some time. So team, we have one small issue, which is this one. So basically in our pipeline we were supposed to provide the another variable, because in our stages we have added another variable, which is basically the namespace name, which is 𝗵𝗵𝗶. Okay, so I have just added it, and now it should be working fine again. I'm still trying to deploy to initial environment, which is blue in my case. Okay, so yeah, this is going to run for quite some time, and yeah, let's wait for this. So team, the pipeline is completed. You can see, since we are deploying to first time to blue environment, that means it's not going to switch traffic. Okay, you can see this stage has been skipped. Okay, and now we can check out the URL to access the load balancer. Okay, and yeah, this is, you can see it's in pending state because immediately we created, and yeah, this will take some time. So we can go here on server and you can run the command 𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗹𝗃 get all hyphen and web apps. From here we can get the URL. Okay, let us try to access it in browser first. Okay, see, this is not getting up because this application may take little bit time to completely come in running state. Meanwhile, we can check the logs just to be confirmed, like there is no issue. 𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗃 logs and the pod URL. Sorry, this was in web apps namespace. Okay, it seems it is running. Okay, we have to, I guess, wait for some time so that it comes in online state. Okay, and okay, now you can see the application is running fine. Okay, so now like we have deployed to our production server, which is blue environment. Now let's say I have some updates in my application, and now I want to deploy the application, or basically upgrade the application. So in that case we can click on build with parameters. I want to deploy to green environment, Docker tag will be green, and I want to switch traffic from blue to green. So now we can click on build now, and let's see what happens now. Okay, this should not be taking too much time. Still, let's see. This time this stage will be running because this time we have checked in that I want to switch the traffic from blue to green. Okay, so let's wait for this. And meanwhile we can check in Nexus also if we our artifacts have been deployed or not. So as I told, artifacts will be deployed to snapshot, and you can see here artifacts have been deployed. As of now, 3 times we have run, so 3 artifacts are present. Okay, and let's see here MySQL deployment. Now you can see here very clearly switching of traffic happened, right? Because we have just ran the command to switch the traffic from blue to green. Automatically you can see how it is deciding version equal to green. Okay, that's what I told you, that inside the YAML file, if I show you blue YAML file, version is mentioned, inside green version is mentioned. Okay, same thing inside the service YAML file will be having this version. Based on this, it's going to switch the traffic. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can switch the traffic. And just to confirm, if I show you 𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗃 get all hyphen and web apps, you can see here now there are 2 pods, blue and green. Okay, and this service, bank app service, is directing, or the connect basically pointing to green deployment pod file now. Okay. One question you might be thinking, Aditya, you can delete the blue environment then. Yes, I can, but the problem is that in case we want to revert back, in case we want to roll back to previous environment, then this pod should be available, right? So for that reason, I'm not deleting it. Okay. So yeah, this was all, and I hope this video was useful for you. If so, then give it a like, and if you're new on the channel, make sure to subscribe. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day, team.